get started then. If we still have some folks that are joining, but let's go ahead and ring the bell and get started today. Welcome to your May 11th, 2026 Rotary Club of Ames meeting online. Let's go ahead and start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's take a minute if we have anybody to keep in our thoughts and prayers. I'll check the chat here. Not seeing any. Let's just take a moment and think of someone that could use our thoughts. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead and be seated here. We've got a few announcements here today before we get into our main program today. Next week we will be in person back at the Plex. Laura Bascow and Lorna Carroll will be talking about Lights Out Iowa, saving Iowa's birds and pollinators. The following week is Memorial Day already, if you can believe that. And then we'll be back in person for our club luncheon at the Plex with Michael Ardent from Barilla on June 1st. So here we go, coming up on summer. RILA has been extended. The deadline has been extended to May 31st. We do have some applicants for that already, but if you know of anyone else that would like to fill out an application, please see the website there to get that in by May 31st. And our volunteers for Spring Miracle League, Lisa and I were out there this Saturday. Very, very exciting. A lot of the weather was beautiful. The kids had a blast. Admittedly, that's my first time being out there, and I got to say, it's really a great way to start your Saturday. Lisa had a great point. She was going to head to the farmers market afterwards. That's going now downtown. Just a great, good feel. We were coaches, but also buddies with some of the kids. And I tell you what, it's really awesome. The Triangle Fraternity had a lot of their kids there. They kind of split it up, juniors and seniors versus freshmen and sophomore. It was kind of fun. So as far as buddies go, but please think about that. If you're able to volunteer, it really truly is only about an hour. They are very efficient in what they do. If you could show up just a little bit before 9 o'clock, that'd be great. And in June it'd be 10, but not much before. You really aren't needed that soon. So it really is just about an hour, and you're going to meet some great people. So please sign up for that. We are co-coaching, and then we are also helping to sponsor food, just a little snacks on the 30th and all three of those in June too. So.
And I just want to add, I think that Marion Cressy from Kiwanis or someone will be reaching out just for the number of volunteers that they may need. So.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just let me know if you are available and would like to volunteer, so we've got an idea of how many they're going to be expecting. And thank you to those that responded to the email that I sent out. And we've got the June dates definitely covered, I think. I mean, at least a couple of people. And we did also reach out to Rotary, so you may have some interaction with Rotary members as well.
Perfect. That's awesome. I know that's difficult for the students when the school's getting out and everything, but that's awesome. Hopefully we can get a couple of them out there too. So perfect, good feel, community service projects. Was there any other announcements, Allison, that we had, or was that is pretty much it? Okay, perfect. I am going to turn it over to Tammy's going to introduce Lisa Markley today for our keynote speaker. So I'll turn it over to Tammy.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to introduce Lisa Markley, who is the Story County Assistant Auditor and Budget Manager. And she's been in the same position for 31 years for Story County. She is responsible for the county budget, county payroll, accounts payable, annual financial reporting, and grant management. And of course, there's those other duties as assigned, which include helping with the elections. And she made a note that nobody in our office goes unscathed during election time, and with drainage district finances. She's lived in Story County since 1981. She attended ISU and never left. And she's been married for 42 years and has 4 kids and 6 grandkids. So I hope you had a great Mother's Day, Lisa. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it. As she said, my name is Lisa Markley. I am the Assistant Auditor Budget Manager. Seen a lot of things in 31 years, and I hope that I can give you some idea of the whole Story County budget process and how your property taxes are used in Story County while I give you a brief presentation. Please do not don't be afraid to ask questions if you have some. I'm assuming somebody will watch the chat for me so that they'll know if the questions are coming up. So go ahead and go ahead. There you go. I will start with the organizational chart for Story County. The residents of Story County at the top, obviously. The attorney, auditor, board of supervisors, recorder, sheriff, and treasurer are all elected offices in the county. So each of those elected offices have their duties. The board of supervisors is the managerial/legislative body of the county. And they oversee all of the departments. So the departments that are listed anyway. They also do the appointments for the Board of Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Zoning Commission, the VA Commission, Board of Health, Conservation Board. Those appointments are all done by the Board of Supervisors in their duties. So for the tax askings of the county, in general, overall, the tax askings are broken down as this chart shows. The schools receive about 46% of your tax dollars, the cities about 29%, and the county about 14%. So my hope is that I can focus more on the county portion today, and then at the end you'll be able to see a breakdown of how your property taxes are broken down individually for an Ames resident. So while the Code of Iowa covers budgets for Story County or for the counties, the maximum levies for the county are listed here for the different types of levies. However, recent legislation has changed those rates based on the valuation and revenue growth. So assessed values are how the local governments begin processing the setting of the levies in December. The valuations from the assessments are rolled back by the Department of Revenue. So that is what the local governments, the cities, the counties use when they set their budgets. They use the taxable value. So the assessed value is rolled back to a taxable value. The basic levy, again, I said, is $3.50 per $1,000 of taxable value. The supplemental levy has no max. It's only accessible if the basic levy is insufficient. However, it is limited by services. So in Story County's case, we pay all of the benefits for all of our employees out of the supplemental fund if they're paid out of this general fund. We pay for the local emergency management agency portion. We pay for district court costs, chemical dependency treatment, and any election costs outside of the normal staff. Additional funds are budgeted. They are not levied. The Board of Supervisors, by resolution, can add funds that are for specific purposes. The county budget begins with the valuations in December, as I said, which is then the basis for the levies. So For FY27, next fiscal year, the general fund taxable growth was 4.62%, which limited our revenue growth to 2%. And the rural fund taxable growth was 1.79%, which means no limitation. The county could levy up to $3.95 per thousand. As I said, I've been here 31 years. We've never levied $3.95 in the rural. The rollbacks are the percentage of the actual value subject to taxation. So in this fiscal year, if your house is assessed at 100,000, it's rolled back for residential to $44,535 is what we tax you on. Agricultural is rolled back to $59,400 is what we tax you on. And the commercial and industrial is rolled back to 90% of the amount over $150,000 value. So there's a little bit more calculation that happens there. So the departments all submit requests to the auditor, who compiles and presents to the Board of Supervisors for work session discussions. All the elected officials and department heads have work sessions in January and February. If you're interested in any of those, the Zoom links for those meetings are on the county website. For the upcoming budget, we had requests for 4 new positions. None of those were approved. The salaries were put in at a 3% cost of living adjustment. The health insurance premiums were budgeted at a 5% increase. The county also contributes to asset, and our contribution increased by 5% this year. The county also has a capital improvement plan, and that is available on the website. It includes multiple conservation bond projects, secondary roads equipment. The Emergency Operations Center is in the lower level of the administration building, and we're looking to remodel that. And we're budgeting for a roof replacement at the Human Services Center in Ames. The county has 274 approximately, depends on the payroll, employees. The number of positions in the county departments and elected official areas, offices are set by the Board of Supervisors. The salaries are set by resolution each year. The county has 3 bargaining units: secondary roads, the sheriff's command staff, and the sheriff's deputies, communication jailers. The sheriff's office is our largest department with 90 employees. We also employ summer help and part-time staff, ranging, depends on the year, from 30 to 35 additional employees. The conservation gets park aides and summer naturalists. Secondary roads gets lawnmowers. And we also hire, depending on the election year, election technicians and temporary employees. And I want to do a shout out to Rotary right now, because I think we have gotten numerous Rotary employees or Rotary participants that work elections for us, and we absolutely love having that option. So in the budget we certified last week, week and a half ago, I guess, the general fund levy will be $3.43. That's going to be paid by all residents of Story County. That's in the general basic fund, and that's where the majority of our expenses are. The supplemental levy will be a little over 78 cents. Our debt service levy will be $12 cents, I'm sorry, a little over 12.5 cents. The county has outstanding debt right now, $6.3 million. So that means everybody in the county is going to pay $4.34 toward county services. Then the rural services, our levy will be an additional $3.11. So that's going to benefit anyone in the unincorporated areas, is how the code refers to the rural services levy. That covers secondary roads, libraries, planning and development, animal control, integrated roadside vegetation management. I use IRVM because it's much easier to say. So the revenues for the budget we just approved and will be going into were $50,882,000. Of those, 62% of our revenues are going to come from property taxes. The state of Iowa does require us to present our budget by service area, so that's how I'm going to break this out for you. 19% is from intergovernmental revenues. That could include grants. We get road use tax. We get state tax replacements. That's what the intergovernmental is. 7% of our revenues come from fees for services, which would include recording fees when you record a document in the recorder's office, sheriff's fees, auto registration fees, those types of mandatory fees. 7% of our revenues come from local option sales tax, and that is the portion the county gets. Each city gets their own local option sales tax, and then the county gets local option sales tax also. And 3% of our revenue come from interest and rentals. That's going to include interest on investments, camping fees, and any miscellaneous revenues that there are.
What's the TIF revenue?
TIF revenue. Oh, I'm sorry, 2% TIF revenue. So when the wind farms were built or constructed, the Board of Supervisors determined that those revenues should be put into a TIF. And so those revenues go toward a lot of economic development projects, a lot of bigger projects. Lisa, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just so you know, that TIF is tax increment financing. We get used to using a lot of acronyms, so just to be clear with that.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. I do get used to just using the acronyms, and I know what I'm talking about. So the expenses that we are budgeting for the next fiscal year is 59,540,000. Again, those are all broken out by service area. I will go through each of those service areas in the next slide so you can see exactly how many dollars are being budgeted for those. And understand the budget is the budget. My boss is Lucy Martin, the auditor, and she likes to say it's a plan. Our budget is a plan. That's all it is. So the primary duties of the county include public safety and legal services. That's 31% of the budget, or about $18.3 million. That's going to include your sheriff, patrol, communications, and jail. It's going to include attorney's office for criminal prosecution, emergency management, juvenile justice administration. The next highest percent is administration of the county. It's 16% of the budget, or $9.6 million. That's going to cover the Board of Supervisors, the treasurer's tax collection side of their office, the auditor finance side of their office, the buildings, all of the buildings that the county has throughout the county, information technology or IT, and the tort liability of the county. And we're going to go to roads and transportation. That's about 15% of the upcoming budget, or $9.2 million. There's funding in there for over 900 miles of roads in the unincorporated area. It includes the maintenance, the snow removal, the bridges and culvert replacement, the engineering, and the equipment. The Secondary Roads Engineer's Office does do a 5-year transportation plan. Every year the board approves, and that is actually done right after, not too long after the budget is presented. So the next biggest expenditure for the county is county environmental and education, 13%, or about $7.5 million of the budget. That's going to include all the conservation, county parks, trails, outdoor recreation, their education programs. It's going to include county development, economic development, planning and development, the animal shelter, education. The Code of Iowa has the county tells the county that we need to fund the libraries for the unincorporated user area. So we do some funding there. We do funding of the historical societies and the county fair every day, or every year, excuse me. The capital projects is about 11% of our budget, or 6.8 million, and that's going to vary every year depending on what big projects we have. That includes the roadway construction and the conservation projects, land acquisition, and county buildings. Next is health and social services, about 8% of our budget, or 4.7 million. The asset services, which is the personal family health services to the poor, military, veterans, elderly, youth, those are all funded out of this service area. The governmental services is about 4%, or 2.1 million of the budget. The election administration for local and federal elections is in there. Local elections are all billed back out to the entity calling them. So if the city of Ames calls for a budget, or excuse me, calls for a special election of any sort, or this city school election that was just held last November, those all get billed back to the local entities. But all the federal elections are paid for by the county. It includes the motor vehicle registration side of the treasurer's office and recording of all public documents for the recorder's office. Okay, so you come into, you live in Ames, first of all, and you come into the treasurer's office and you want to pay your property taxes. Well, you don't want to, but you're going to. This assumes an assessed value of $100,000. So the taxable value would be rolled back to 44,500, as we talked about earlier. In this scenario, the total taxes would be $1,373. The Ames School District would receive about 45% of those dollars. The City of Ames about 33% of those dollars. The county would get about 14%. So we also have the county hospital that has the levy authority, so they would get about 3%. The city assessor in the city of Ames has their own assessor, and they have the levy authority also, and they get about 1%, along with Ag Extension and Area School of DMAC. If you lived in rural Story County, for instance, you lived in the unincorporated area of Franklin Township in this example, all the townships in the county have levy authority also. They levy for fire, for cemeteries. So they have they set their own levies. So if you lived in rural Story County, the distribution looks different. Your total taxes here would be $1,089. The Ames School District, again, would get the largest portion, about 57%. The county then would get about 30% because you're going to pay for the unincorporated rural levy. The township, in this case, Franklin, would get about 2% of your tax dollars. And again, the hospital would get about 4, area schools about 3, and we have a county assessor also. So the county assessor and Ag Extension would get between 1 and 2%. There is a presentation on the Story County website that I did at the budget hearing, which is similar to this, not as many details. So if you have any questions, or if there are any questions in the chat that I needed to answer, please feel free to ask.
Lisa, I have a question. You mentioned roadways and such. Is there much state or federal funding that can be incorporated into that line item as well, or?
So the way this budget works is we have to show all the expenses. I'm not showing individual departments where some of the revenues are coming from, but yes, the actual revenues for secondary roads are about a third, a third, a third. And by that, I mean state road use tax, county taxes, and miscellaneous other revenues that the engineer's office gets. Yes. So their revenues come from various sources. Yes.
Hey Lisa, I have a question. How does the state legislature setting property taxes, how does that affect the county?
Big conversations lately. I know what you're saying. Um, so the Code of Iowa gives us our limits, and for many years when I was putting budgets together and helping put budgets together, the limits were the limits. That's what we could levy. Um, they're trying to cut back the growth in the valuations, in the taxable values, in the amounts that we can levy. So have not, in all fairness, read the new legislation that just went through. I'm sure Lisa can give us a lot more answers on that. Um, I happened to have been in the Bahamas last week with my daughter, so it was not important to me to stay up on, this stuff until I came back to work. But yeah, the limitations that they're saying you can only grow this percent, this percent, this percent. I've told the Board of Supervisors numerous times, um, they're trying to limit the revenue growth and the property tax growth. And what we're going to end up having to do, I'm sure, as all the counties and all the cities are going to do, is uh, find ways to cut expenditures because um, we have services that we're providing. We have services that the county people want, and we're going to have to figure out what the priorities are.
Lisa, I'm going to ask you a question, and we're glad you came back from the Bahamas. I'm sure you had a great
I
time.
didn't want to.
Yeah. So oftentimes we hear that uh, do you have a balanced budget? Are your revenues the same as your expenditures? And what I always tell people is we receive funds, for example, through the opioid settlement, and we are funding position, or we received money from the American Rescue Act or ARPA funds. But we can only count those dollars when we receive them. So you're expending out those dollars each time. So that's why it doesn't look like your dollars that you are receiving are the same as what you're expending. It's because you're expending dollars you've already collected, and you have, I think with the ARPA funds, they have to be expended by the end of this year, but the opioid funds, till they run out, we just keep getting more funds on that. Am I correct on that?
You are absolutely correct on that, and that is very hard to understand and hard to wrap your head around. Um, when I talk about, or when anybody talks about balanced budget, I look at the levy funds, the levying funds that the board has authority over versus the levying funds we spend. So the revenues versus the expenses on those. But and as I pointed out in my slide, the Board of Supervisors has other funds that they approve, the opioid funds, the ARPA funds, the conservation has like four different funds that rolls over each year. That we have to budget the expenses, but the funds are sitting there. So we're not digging into property tax dollars in those points. We're usually taking money from, or we're usually using the money that's already saved for other purposes. Did I just see a chat about the EMC and EOC or no, not the, or emergency
There's a
management?
couple of questions here. One is, what's the distinction between schools and area schools?
Schools would be your local school districts. Area schools would be DMAC, MCC, whatever. I think DMAC is our only area school, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the only area school that we fund
Okay.
or that gets funded. We don't fund it. They set their levy too.
Yep. Next question, who pays for emergency medical services and ambulance services? Mary Gailey Medical Center does not receive tax money. Do other counties pay for EMS and ambulance services?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there's one county that has a countywide EMS levy, which is a voted levy. So in order to do an an emergency services levy for the whole county, it would have to be voted on by the residents of the county.
And did that just happen in Hamilton County?
There was a
They had
county that might have just happened in Hamilton County. There was a county in southern Iowa that had, for years, was the only county that had an EMS levy. So I guess I'm not real positive if Hamilton County voted for that or not.
There was something that we just voted on. Okay, the next question, with salaries going up 3% and medical insurance going up 5%, how can the county keep up if there's a new cap of 2% on property taxes?
I think that's exactly what we were just talking about. There are certain services that the county is required to provide, obviously, and then there are additional services is all I can say that we provide, and our residents want them. Um, the insurance benefits was budgeted a 5% increase. The way our the budget is looking, no, the way that the numbers are coming in, I don't think it's going to be a full 5%. Um, this year, for example, the current year we're in, we have had probably five fairly larger positions, and by larger, I mean higher salaried positions that have been empty for a substantial amount of time. So there's been some savings there. And when we build our budget, we look at, okay, where are we spending, where are we saving money, and then where are we going to, redistribute that make possibly. But yeah, it's a legitimate question and something that I think we all have to think about is what are the priorities going to be when it comes to budgets?
Elise, I just want to add too on that is the opioid funds that I mentioned, those can't be used for just general funds. They can only be used for a specific purpose. Same with those American Rescue Fund dollars that we had. They have to be all expended by the end of this year, and they could only have been for a specific purpose. So we couldn't use them to fill in back salaries or other areas of a budget.
Another just came in. How does Story County compare to other larger populated counties in Iowa with debt?
I have not looked at that recently. We do have to do an annual debt reporting. Um, I feel like our debt is really, really low, in comparison with almost everybody else, but I don't know that for a fact. I think on the state of Iowa, on the Department of Revenue, I think there might be a link to what all the debt is everybody's reporting. Yeah, we did Storycom bond, which was a $3 million bond. The city did about $3 million. It provided about $3 million, the county $3 million, and Iowa State $3 million to update all of our towers for Story County E911. So that is one of the bonds, and that one is close to being paid off. And then we also did a secondary roads bond of a little over $3 million. And then we just recently, the voters of the state, or the voters of the county, excuse me, voted on a conservation bond for up to 25 million. We borrowed 4 million this first year. We're doing it in phases because if we do, you have to spend your money in a certain time frame, and the bond had so many projects in it, there was no way it was all going to get done at once anyway. So. Any other questions?
I'm happy to say I'm very grateful for the bond issue. The conservation bond issue is really unique. Story County voted for it, and uh, I think it's one of three counties. I think Johnson County also got a conservation bond going or something like that. But anyway, I'm very grateful for that, and I think that's going to be a good asset for Story County.
We had one
Right, we
more.
did-
Yeah, as I say, I just saw another question there and I didn't catch it. Oh, bridges. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let Lisa talk about bridges. How's that?
Actually, I'm going to say we probably need to have our engineer in on that. That is part of the things that he budgets each year. I know a lot of the smaller bridges that he could, or the larger bridges that could be taken care of with federal funds have been done. Story County, we have a lot of bridges in there, and a number of them that are 80, 90 or so years old. Um, that is not, I mean, when people say that Story County's got the worst bridges in the state, well, we have probably one of the most bridges in the state. We have areas where we have two bridges right next to each other. But I would have to pull up and look at, maybe while you answer the next question, I can look that up real quick.
Do the percentages vary much year to year for revenue and expenditures?
They sure don't. I often think to myself, I should put the actuals up also, but the budgeted expenditures very rarely change substantially. It's going to depend on, as I said, the capital projects is probably the biggest variance as far as where our dollars, what percentage of our dollars are going to go to capital projects. Counties are not allowed to put money in a separate fund for capital projects. So the county, in Story County's case, we assign dollars in the general fund for the projects when they're going to start. So I can move the dollars once the board decides to start funding a project, we move them to the capital projects. So that's where your biggest variance is usually going to be, is the what percent is going to be capital projects versus distributed to the other departments.
Ask your doctor about adding red salt tea.
Hey, it's me, your dry skin. I demand CeraVe Facial Moisturizing Lotion for 24-hour hydration, SPF 50 protection, and no white cast. CeraVe, demanded by skin.
I don't see anything more in the chat.
Last call. I know Lisa was trying to look something up, but
Yeah, I can't find it that quick. I'm sorry.
all
Good
good.
question. I will reach out to our engineer and I can respond at our next Rotary meeting.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you, Lisa, especially hopping on here on a Monday after what was probably a fabulous week and so thank you very much.
You should see me scrambling to put something together and then forget all about life until I get back.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. Much appreciated for you to hop on with us today and give us a little bit of information about how property taxes work in the county. So we appreciate that. I think I'll turn it back over to Jamie.
Perfect. Thank you, Tammy. And yes, thank you, Lisa, for your years of service to our county. It's a beautiful county. We all know it. Just appreciate all you've done for us over the years and for sharing today, just as you got back. That's awesome. So,
Right.
yeah, with that, I'll just remind everyone to sign up for Miracle League. If you can get out there on Saturdays, that would be awesome. And with that, we can go ahead and do our four-way test and enjoy your week. So, of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everyone. Like I said, have a great week. We'll see you in person next week.